ॐ विश्वंदर्पण दृश्यमान नगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोध समये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्र पराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठं अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे उल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः I welcome you all to the 23rd class of our Bhagavad Gita study. We will read the 47th verse of the second chapter. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते
मा फलेषु कदाचन
मा फलेषु कदाचन
मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः
मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः
मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि
मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि.
As we saw in the last few classes, the peace, security, and happiness of a human being is not dependent on how much the human being accumulates materially. If it is not dependent on one's material accomplishments, then what is it dependent on? The Bhagavad Gita is very clear that the peace, security, and happiness of a human being is determined by one's inner growth. If my peace, security, and happiness is so dependent upon my inner growth, then what is inner growth? What brings about this inner growth? The Gita points out that Atma Jnanam, or self-knowledge, is the culmination, is the summit, is the peak of one's inner growth. Because with Atma Jnanam, the Jnani knows that I am unconditionally full, complete, limitless, Purnaha. I am not affected by any event that happens in the body, mind, or in the world. Why? Because the body, mind, and the world belong to a lower order of reality, whereas I, the Atma, belong to a higher order of reality. Therefore, Bhagavan starts off his teaching with the teaching of this Atma Jnanam, the nature of the Atma. But then, in order to come to Atma Jnanam, one needs a mind that is relatively free of emotional turbulence. And it is possible to get such a mind as well. So, how to attain this mind, the preparedness of mind, in which one is relatively free of emotional turbulence, even without Atma Jnana? So, as we discussed, we often tend to think that the emotional turbulence, for my emotional turbulence, the world is responsible. But then Bhagavad Gita corrects our understanding, and it says that for my emotional turbulence, the world is not responsible, but my dependence upon the world is responsible. And what causes my dependence upon the world? It is my own ragas and dveshas. It is my own likes and dislikes that the world should be like this, the world should not be like this. But the nature of the world is that it need not conform to my likes and dislikes. And therefore, if I have strong likes and dislikes, they result in emotional turbulence if the world doesn't conform to my likes and dislikes. So then, how to get a mind that is relatively free of emotional turbulence? One possibility is that I adjust the world in keeping, to be in keeping, in conformity with my likes and dislikes always. But that is the path of samsara that will keep me constantly occupied with the world, constantly busy with the world, and the world is inherently uncontrollable, unsustainable, unpredictable. So this path is not a path to lasting peace, security, and happiness. And what is the other option? The other option is to neutralize my own ragas and dveshas so that they don't cause emotional turbulence even if the world is not in conformity with them. Bhagavad Gita points out that this is the path to lasting peace, security, and happiness. This is what results in the preparedness of the mind for Atma Jnanam. Then the next question is, how do I neutralize my own ragas and dveshas? Bhagavad Gita again points out that the way to do that is through karma yoga, through proper action and proper attitude. And what is proper action? Proper action is complete avoidance of tamasa karmas, karmas that result in my spiritual downfall, karmas that involve adharma. Number one. Number two, reducing my own rajasa karmas. Rajasa karmas are those karmas that originate from my own ragas and dveshas with an intent to adjust the world according to my ragas and dveshas. So I should try to reduce these rajasa karmas. In the beginning, of course, even the Veda allows one to pursue rajasa karmas. But the idea of the Veda is that one should slowly grow out of these rajasa karmas. And then increase the sattvika karmas. The sattvika karmas are the ones that are most efficacious in terms of my internal growth, in terms of my spiritual growth, through the neutralization of my ragas and dveshas. So abstain from tamasa karmas, reduce rajasa karmas, and increase sattvika karmas. So Bhagavan pointed out proper action. And now the question is, what is proper attitude? So proper attitude involves healthy attitudes in the mind with regards to action as well as the result of action. That is where the shloka comes in. Dharmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. But as we discussed, that in order to totally better appreciate the meaning of the shloka, we have to have some understanding of who Ishvara is. Therefore, in the last class, we provided an introduction to who Ishvara is in the vision of Vedanta, in the vision of Bhagavad Gita. Like we said, every product has to have a cause. The product cannot come about by itself. And our Shastras point out, and even our normal experience, we can see that every product has got two causes. One is the maker, the other is the material. Every product requires some knowledge and skill for the production of that product. And that knowledge and skill is resident in a conscious being. Because it involves intelligence. And therefore, we call this the nimitta karanam, or the intelligent cause. For example, if we take a furniture, the carpenter is the one with the knowledge and the skill. The carpenter is a nimitta karanam, or the intelligent cause. But as we can see, the carpenter cannot produce the furniture out of nothing. He needs to go in search of wood. The goldsmith cannot produce the ornaments out of nothing. The goldsmith needs to go in search of gold. And therefore, the maker and the material come together and result in the product. Therefore, there are two causes. The nimitta karanam is the intelligent cause, the maker. The upadana karanam is the material cause, the material involved. Now, the world is a product. What is the cause of this world? How did this world come about? Vedanta presents Ishvara as being the cause of this world. Jagat Karanam Ishvara. So now, if we look at the situation prior to the world coming out, Vedanta points out it is very similar to our deep sleep. In our deep sleep state, there is nothing at all that is perceptible. There is no space, no time. So in this situation, Vedanta points out, now if we take the pralaya avastha, it is similar to our deep sleep. Before the srishti happens, there is pralaya. Pralaya is very similar to our deep sleep. So in pralaya, Ishvara alone is there. Just like in deep sleep, the sleeping individual alone is there. There's no space, no time, no world. So in pralaya avastha, Ishvara alone is there. Now, there is no space also. So as we discussed, we cannot fit this into the similar model that the maker goes in search of the material from outside, because there is no outside at this point. When there is no space, how can there be outside Ishvara? There is no such thing called outside Ishvara. Therefore, what Vedanta points out, if we ask, what is the material cause? We ask this question, Vedanta points out that Ishvara is a nimitta karanam, all right. Ishvara has got the knowledge and skill to produce this world. But then the upadana karanam is also Ishvara, because Ishvara cannot get the material from outside of himself. There is no outside yet. Therefore, Ishvara himself becomes this world. This is the mind-boggling revelation of Vedanta that we saw. And we took the example of the spider. The spider doesn't go in search of the material for the web. The spider finds the material for the web from within itself. You can say figuratively that the spider becomes the web. And the spider sustains the web with its own material. So the spider becomes the web. The spider sustains the web with its own material, and finally, the spider also swallows the web. The other example is that of our own dream world. When the waker goes to sleep, where does the waker get the material for his own dream? He finds the material within himself. So the waker becomes the dream, the spider becomes the web, the waker becomes the dream, the waker sustains the dream, and the waker resolves the dream back into himself. So similarly, Ishvara becomes this world. Srishti is nothing but Ishvara becoming this world. Ishvara sustains this world, And finally, during Pralayavastha, Ishvara resolves this world back into himself. So now one interesting thing about the material cause, the intelligent cause, and the product, if we analyze this, then the intelligent cause or the nimitta karanam can be separated from the product. Like a carpenter produces the furniture and sells the furniture. When he sells the furniture, you can get the furniture home. You don't have to get the carpenter along with the furniture. If the carpenter had to come along with the furniture, then you would have one more mouth to feed at home. If every product that you buy, if it has to come with its creator, then you will have a lot of mouths to feed at home just because you have those products. So the nimitta karanam thankfully can be separated from the product in time as well as space. And if the nimitta karanam, the carpenter can export his products to another country separated by space. And the carpenter can even go away. The product remains. So there can be separation in time, separation in space. But the upadana karanam can never be separated from the product in time or space. Because the wood has to go along with the furniture. The carpenter cannot say, you leave the wood behind and take the furniture. So when you get the furniture home, you also get the wood along with it. The upadana karanam cannot be separated from the product. In fact, the upadana karanam pervades the entire product. And therefore, Ishvara, being upadana karanam, also pervades this entire world. So a lot of people ask, where is Ishvara? Where is Ishvara? For somebody who has an understanding of Ishvara, you should ask a counter question, where is Ishvara not? Where is Ishvara not? Somebody, Puja Swamiji used to say this, that people ask, does Hinduism have one God? Or does Hinduism have many gods? What is Hinduism? How does Hinduism view God? So Puja Swamiji used to reply, and we don't have just one God. We don't also have many gods. We have only God. We have only God. And only Ishvara. There's nothing else. It's Ishvara that appears as everything, who manifests as everything, who becomes everything. You can use different types of language to say what has happened. The final result is that Ishvara alone really is in various forms. So then the question arises, that what is my relationship with this Ishvara? So just like the furniture or the ornament, my sthula and sukshma sharira are also products. Products that have emerged with the Srishti. Therefore, Ishvara alone has become my sthula and sukshma sharira also. Therefore, Ishvara pervades me as well, just like wood pervades the furniture, gold pervades the ornament, Ishvara pervades me as well. That is why in the final analysis, I and Ishvara are really one. There is no difference between who I really am and Ishvara. But then I am ignorant about this. I don't know this as a fact. And in my self-ignorance, I have taken myself to be just this much. I am just this body and mind. deficient, wanting, inadequate, apurnaha. And then I have my ragas and dveshas. I view myself in my self-ignorance as being this limited being in this separate world. And then I have my ragas and dveshas that constantly draw me into this world to fix up the world in keeping with my ragas and dveshas. So I get busy in that. I get involved in that. And go through emotional turmoils. That is samsara. Vedanta wants to raise my understanding to the highest truth that I am not different from Ishvara. That is the liberating knowledge that liberates me from samsara. But in order to come to that knowledge, I need a prepared mind. I need a mind that is in which the ragas and dveshas are relatively neutralized. Therefore, Veda comes down to my level. Even though Veda wants to raise me to the level of Vedanta and teach me that I and Ishvara are not different. Vedanta sees, the Veda sees my helplessness and then decides to come down to my level and says that, okay, if you're not able to appreciate this oneness with Ishvara, that is fine. For the time being, you can take Ishvara to be separate from it. But the important thing is now start to relate to this Ishvara. Take this Ishvara to be the Lord and become a devotee of this Ishvara. Let the Ishvara be the creator and you be a creature. And therefore, now relate to this Ishvara. Bring this Ishvara into your life. Worship this Ishvara. And therefore, in Karma Yoga, we have to necessarily bring in Ishvara. Veda points out that once I adopt the sadhana of Karma Yoga, in which I bring in Ishvara, and how exactly we'll bring in Ishvara, we'll see that. Then it will result in the purification of your mind. And with this purified mind, if you come to the teaching of Vedanta, then you will be able to appreciate the fact that the Ishvara that you had taken to be separate from you is none other than you yourself in the final analysis. Therefore, we come to this shloka now. So here, the shloka gives us the principles of Karma Yoga, which involve proper attitude towards my action as well as the result of action. So a proper attitude towards anything can be cultivated only if I have some understanding of what it is towards which I have to have this attitude. For example, if I were to ask you, what is your attitude towards Mehta, towards Mehta ji? Then you may say, who are you talking about? So I may say, yes, the Mehta ji that we met a few days back. What is your attitude towards him? Do you have an attitude of respect or a lack of respect? So at this point, you will say that, I don't know. I just met him once that day. I don't know much about him. So if one has to have proper attitude, an informed attitude, then one has to have some knowledge about the person or the thing, whatever it is. So if you move around with this Mehtaji, then you may find that if he is a upright, ethical, devoted person who has Shraddha, then maybe you will develop some respect for him. But if you find that he is somebody who's involved in cheating and fraud, then your respect for him will go down. So similarly, if I have to develop a proper attitude towards my actions as well as towards the results of my actions. I should understand. I should understand something about these. This shloka, Bhagavan wants us to understand action and its result so that I can develop a proper attitude towards action and its result. So if we do the Padacheda here, Karmanyevadhikaraste, if we split this Karmani eva adhikaraha te. Karmani eva adhikaraha te. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma karma phala hetuhu. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. Ma te sangah astu karmani. Ma te sangostva karmani is there. If you split that, it becomes ma te sangah astu karmani. So in the first quarter, karmanyevadhikaraste. There is no verb here, so we can supply a verb like bhavati. So Bhagavan is saying adhikaraha bhavati, adhikaraha bhavati, meaning that choice, adhikaraha means choice, power, control. So Bhagavan is saying choice, power or control is. So whose choice, whose power, whose control? Bhagavan says adhikaraha te, adhikaraha te. Te means tava, yours. So your choice, your control, your power is te adhikaraha asti, te adhikaraha bhavati. So my choice, my control, my power is with regards to what? Bhagavan says karmani eva. Karmani eva means with regards to action only. Your control, your power, your choice is with regards to action only. Then in the second quarter, Bhagavan says, Ma phaleshu kadachana. Bhagavan says, Ma kadachana. Ma kadachana means at no time or never. Ma kadachana. So what is never? So here again we can bring in the word adhikaraha. So adhikaraha ma kadachana. Adhikaraha, your choice, power, control. Te adhikaraha, we can add te adhikaraha also. Your choice, your power, your control is never, Bhagavan says, is never there. With respect to what? With respect to what? Bhagavan says, phaleshu, phaleshu. Meaning with regards to the results, you don't have any choice, control or power. Phaleshu adhikaraha ma kadachana. Then in the third quarter, Bhagavan says, ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. So that bhuhu is there. So really speaking, it is abhuhu, abhuhu. But in conjunction with ma, because ma is there, it becomes bhuhu. Because of a certain Vyakarana rule. Ma abhuhu becomes ma bhuhu. So Bhagavan says, Tvam ma bhuhu, or Tvam ma abhuhu. Bhagavan says, may you not be. May you not be. So may you not be what? Bhagavan says, karma phala hetuhu. Karma phala hetuhu means the author or the controller of the results. Karma phala is the result. And hetuhu means the author or controller of the result. May you not try to be the author or the controller of the results. Or alternatively, we can take karma phala to be the material result of some action. And hetuhu means one who has a motive that is that is the material result of actions. So may you not be a seeker of the material result of your action. Ma tvam karma phala hetuhu ma abhuhu, Bhagavan says. And then in the last quarter, Bhagavan says, ma te sangaha astu akarmani. So ma astu. Ma astu means may it not be. Ma astu. So may what not be? Sangaha ma astu. So sangaha means attachment or inclination. So sangaha ma astu. So may your attachment, may attachment or inclination. Whose attachment or inclination? Te. So te sangaha is there. So te means tava, yours. So may your attachment or inclination not be. Not be in what? Akarmani. Akarmani means in inaction. So may you not be attached to inaction also. So Bhagavan is making 4 statements here in the shloka. And Bhagavan is, as we said, teaching us the attitude we should have with regards to action as well as the result of action. So let us take each of these statements. The first one is karmanyeva adhikaraste. Karmani eva te adhikaraha bhavati. You have a choice only with regards to your action. So here Bhagavan is not giving some advice, but Bhagavan is giving a statement of fact. Statement of fact. Just like the fact that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius is a statement of fact. It is not some advice. So when Bhagavan says that you have a choice only over your action, and that is a statement of fact. So I have a choice on how I act. So it is not so with everything in the creation. Like with animals, etc., their behavior is programmed and instinctive. They don't deliberate upon choices and say that should I do this, and then decide that I do this, etc. Their behavior is instinctive, programmed. Whereas with a human being, you have a choice. So with this statement, Bhagavan is saying that you have a free will. There's a lot of discussion about whether a human being has got free will or not. So this statement from Bhagavan should settle that question for those who have Shraddha, the teachings of the Gita, for those who have Shraddha and the teachings of Vedanta. So here, people get into the endless debate about free will, whether free will is there or not, and therefore this should settle that question that you have a free will, you have a choice. So action, with regards to actions, it is a choiceful situation. There is choice in that. So one has to use the choice wisely. So I have a choice that I may do a certain action, or I may choose not to do it at all. Or if I do it, then I may do it in any number of ways, and I am free to do any of this. For example, if there is a certain target that I have to hit, then I can choose. I can choose the target that I have to hit, whether to hit this target or whether not to hit this target. Or if this is the target that I should hit, I have a choice. And then how I hit that target also, I have a choice. For example, I can hit it with a stone, or I could probably take a revolver and shoot it with a revolver, or I could take a bow and arrow and hit it with a bow and arrow. So in all of this, I have a choice. But once I have chosen the bow and arrow as my equipment and I have chosen the target, then also I have a choice in how I proceed with that action. For example, I can take a lot of care in taking the aim towards the target. I can account for different factors that can influence how my arrow goes, whether my arrow goes and hits the target or not. I can take into account various known factors. Like I can take the law of gravitation into account. And if we see in our science books, they say that if you have to hit a target, you have to aim a little bit higher because the arrow as it goes will be pulled down by gravity. So I can do all this. I can even take my aim a bit higher. Finally, I release the arrow. So once I release the arrow, my job is done. My control, my power, my choice is only up to that point. Bhagavan says, Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma phaleshu kadachana. So it is not in the result. I have no control at all. I have no choice, no power at all on whether the arrow will hit the target or miss the target. There are any number of different outcomes that are possible. For example, the arrow may hit the bullseye, in which case the result may be much better than what I expected. Or the arrow may hit the side of the target. Or the arrow, as it's traveling, suddenly there may be a gust of wind that moves the arrow towards the side. Therefore, it misses the target. Or there may be some wind that topples the target itself, and my arrow misses the target. Or there may be some bird that comes in between, and the arrow hits the bird instead of the target. So any number of possible outcomes can be there. The possibilities are endless. And therefore, what finally happens, the outcome, may be better than what I expected. It may be equal to what I expected. It may be less than what I expected, or the opposite of what I expected. So, but I don't determine this outcome. For Bhagavan says, Ma phaleshu kadachana. And therefore, with action, I have a choice. I could do so many things before I acted and ensure that everything, whatever is in my control, I try to do that while acting. But once the action is done, the outcome is choiceless. So with regards to where I have choice, I can try to use as much intelligence and power and control as possible. But with regards to the outcome that is choiceless, I have no choice but to accept it. I have to strengthen my mind and accept the outcome. So with regards to actions where I have a choice, I make the choice intelligently. And with regards to the outcome where I have no choice, I accept the outcome also intelligently. The intelligence here is in trying to do as many adjustments during the action as possible to ensure that I have done the best. But the intelligence, when it comes to the outcome, is acceptance. Acceptance is the intelligence there. So now, why don't I have a choice of the results? That can be a question. That is because I, as a karta, as a doer, I am alpagyaha, alpashaktiman. I have limited knowledge. I have limited power. I have limited skill. And therefore, I cannot say what any given action is going to produce. Because the outcome, the karma phala, is produced by a vast network of laws. There's a vast network of laws. And there are many factors that are involved. A lot of the factors may not be visible to me. For example, even my own karma, my own past karma can create obstacles when I perform an action. And therefore, even even there can be many unseen factors, unknown factors that affect the outcome of my action. And there may be many seen or known factors also, like wind or rain, etc. But I cannot exercise control over them because I have limited power. So there are many unseen, unknown factors. Why? Because I have limited knowledge. And there are many known factors, but uncontrollable factors. Why? Because I have limited power and limited skill. And therefore, the result is uncontrollable, unpredictable. And therefore, when I understand that something is uncontrollable, unpredictable, and the wise thing to do is to not make my peace, security, and happiness dependent upon it. And therefore, I don't make my peace, security, and happiness dependent upon the unpredictable and uncontrollable result. Whatever result will come as a result of the functioning of the various laws will come whether I worry about the result, either I crave for the result or not. The laws will do what they have to do. And therefore, instead of worrying about the result, instead of worrying about the outcomes, I focus on what I can do. I focus on that on which I have control, choice, and power. And therefore, I do the action to the best of my ability. And I offer the action itself to Ishvara. And in this, in the action itself, I try to find the joy and cheerfulness when performing the action. I try to have excellence in my actions. For example, let's consider a person who plays some sport. Let's take tennis, for example. So this tennis player, he goes to play tennis. He regularly plays tennis. So now if he gets joy out of playing the game itself, then he can enjoy as he plays the game, and out of that he also gets some exercise, which is good for his body. It helps keep his body fit. And whether he wins or loses, that is not that important. So it is a byproduct. So when somebody is not focused as much on winning and losing, for example, imagine if the tennis player goes to play if he loses a few games and he's not able to take it in the right spirit. If he feels miserable because of losing, and if he gives up playing, then he is missing out all the joy of the action and also the growth, the physical fitness that he gets out of that action. Whereas if the outcome becomes a byproduct, then he enjoys the game as well as he gets some fitness out of it. So similarly, if I discover the joy and inner growth that comes as a result of my actions, then the result becomes less important. So whatever happens in the external world becomes secondary, because one gets the joy and inner growth out of the action itself. If, on the other hand, if one becomes dependent upon the outcome for one's peace, security, and happiness, then one becomes, like Puja Swamiji says, like a yo-yo. So if the action produces a result that is beyond my expectations, that is much above my expectations, then on that particular day he is on an emotional high, and then he basically takes credit for his actions, and that also may lead to certain arrogance or superiority complex. On the other hand, if on a particular day the action produces something that is less than expected or opposite of what is expected, then he may he becomes helpless, angry, frustrated, depressed. He feels miserable. And he may start to say that I am no good and have this kind of an inferiority complex. So Bhagavan says, Ma phaleshu kadachana, and then Bhagavan says, Ma karma phala hetuhu abhuhu. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. Means, do not try to be the author or controller of the result. This yo-yo-like response is precisely what happens if you try to be the author or controller of the outcome of your actions. So as we saw, there are many factors involved in the production of the result. And if I could control and predict all the factors involved, then I could potentially control the result. But being alpajnaha, alpashaktiman, having limited knowledge, limited skill, limited power, I cannot understand all the factors that are involved. And even for the limited factors that are involved, I'm not able to control or predict them. And therefore, due to my limited knowledge and limited power, I cannot be the controller of the result, and I should not try to be the controller of the result also. And therefore, the wise thing to do is to not make my peace, security, and happiness dependent upon the unpredictable, uncontrollable result. So, ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. So therefore, I am only the karma hetuhu. I am only the author. I am the author of my action only. I am only the karma hetuhu. I am not the karma phala hetuhu. Then a question arises that if I am not the karma phala hetuhu, then who is the karma phala hetu? How do I understand the karma phala hetu? So, if, for example, Pujya Swamiji gives an example of a postman. Postman comes monthly to a particular village, and then he gives this some monthly to this person, some 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees he gives to this person. So now, who is to be thanked, or who is responsible for this amount that this person receives? Is it the postman who is to be thanked? So the postman is only the instrument for bringing that particular amount to this person. Who is the person who sent that amount? That person is the one who is responsible for that amount. So similarly, here too, we see that the results are determined by the various laws. We say that this network of laws comes together and produces the result. So is a network of laws the one that can be said to be the karma phala hetu? Can we say that the network of laws are the karma phala hetu? So we say that yes, the results are determined by the laws, but we have to push the inquiry a little bit further. And this is where we bring in Ishvara. Like we discussed, Ishvara being the abhinna nimitta upadana karanam, Ishvara himself has become the world. Just like the spider becomes the web, the waker becomes the dream. Ishvara has become this world. Now, where are the laws? Are the laws outside of this world? No, the laws are operating within this world. So the laws are also a part and parcel of this world. The laws are not something that are outside of this world. Therefore, when we say Bhagavan has become this world, we should include the laws also. Bhagavan himself has become these laws that we see that are functioning in this world. So then who is the one What is producing the result? We say the laws are producing the result, but Bhagavan himself has become these laws. Therefore, we have to say that it is Bhagavan who is producing the result. Bhagavan is the one who is determining the result. The same Bhagavan who is the intelligent and material cause of this world has become these laws also and is determining the results of my actions through these laws. Therefore, Ishvara becomes the karma phala data or the karma phala hetu, one who dispenses, the dispenser of the results of my actions. So, Ishvara alone is the karma phala data. I am the karta. Ishvara is the karma phala data. Now let us take it one step further. We say that whatever comes from Ishvara is prasada. So when we go to a temple, for example, in the temple we stand there, we do some prayer, we do some puja, whatever it is, and at the end of it, we may get some tirtham, or we get some tulasi leaf, or we get some vibhuti, or we get some sweet. Whatever it is, how do I accept it? What have we been taught in our culture? That when we get this prasada, when we get this prasada in the temple, then we accept it with humility, with my head bowed down. I accept it in a certain manner that is very, very unique to our culture. And why do I accept it that way? Because I don't view it just as a leaf or as some ash or some just like some sweet that I get from a shop. No. This is now coming from Ishvara. This is now coming from Ishvara, and therefore it becomes prasada. It's the same object. But when I view it differently, then it becomes prasada. And then my attitude to it is one of humility, one of humble and gracious acceptance. So prasada is not an object, but it is a way of looking at an object. The same object that I may not pay much attention to, if I understand it is prasada, my attitude to it suddenly changes. So a person, for example, and Pujya Swamiji gives an example that if there's a person who is diabetic, and the person, if he is normally given a laddu at home, bought from some shop or something, then he will say, no, 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 no. He will reject it. But if you give him that laddu initially, that this laddu, somebody comes home and they give him this laddu, initially he has the same response. The moment he says, I just went to Tirupati, I got it from there, then suddenly his attitude changes. And he accepts it and then he eats it also. This is what our culture has taught us at how we treat prasada. When something comes from Ishvara, it is prasada. So my mind becomes open suddenly. When I understand something is prasada, it's coming from Ishvara. So similarly here, I understand that the outcome of all of my action is coming from none other than Ishvara, who is present in the form of this entire world and the laws that run this world. Then I undergo an attitudinal shift with regards to the results, with regards to the outcome of my actions. That the karma phala, normally you would say it is karma phala. This is the outcome of my action. But the same karma phala now becomes prasada when I understand that it is coming from Ishvara. Then there is no room for complaint. I never complain about prasada. Even if it has no salt, I just eat it. Even if it has less salt, I eat it. Even if it has more salt, I eat it. I eat it with, with the attitude that it is prasada. And therefore, I bring in the samatvam with respect to prasada. I keep aside my ragas and dveshas, and I am able to accept this prasada. That same attitude I have to bring to the outcome of action. That if it is more than expected, prasada, equal to what I expected, it is prasada. Less than what I expected, it is prasada. The opposite of what I expected, also it is prasada. I accept it as Ishvara's prasada with samatvam. I regulate the response of my mind towards the results of my actions because they are prasada. And therefore, karma phala hetuhu ma abhuhu, one says. And alternatively, there is another way of looking at it. So, karma phala hetu, as we said, is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the karma phala hetu. I look upon Bhagavan as the karma phala hetu, who means karma phala data, and I look upon all the results as prasad. But alternatively, as we said, we can take karma phala hetu ma abhuhu to mean that may your motive not be the material gain in your actions. So, may the focus not be, when I'm acting in the world, may the focus not be on the money or the promotion or the status or the credit or the name or fame, etc. Let my focus, let all these not be the motive for my action. Because if these are the motive for my action, then my mind will again become like a yo-yo. When I'm too focused on all of these, then my mind will go through emotional turmoil because the result is unpredictable and uncontrollable. And one will become miserable. One will be riddled with worry, anxiety, etc. And therefore, I let go of these kind of material motives. Instead of lokajayaha, let my motive be manojayaha. So karma phala hetuhu. Don't have this trishna for the karma phalam. Don't have this hankering for the karma phalam. Karma phala hetuhu ma bhuhu. So there are a few misconceptions with regards to this shloka. And one of the misconceptions when Bhagavan says, Ma phaleshu kadachana, Ma phaleshu kadachana, karmanyeva adhikaraste, Ma phaleshu kadachana. You have a choice in action only, not in the result of your action. When Bhagavan says this, then there is a certain misconception that some read it, some understand it, that the results are already predetermined. The results are predetermined by Bhagavan, and therefore my effort is useless. And therefore one comes to some kind of fatalism. So here again, Vedanta and Bhagavad Gita don't agree. Your effort is important, but your effort alone doesn't determine the outcome. Therefore, one should not be a pessimist in any situation saying acting is futile, let us just not do anything about it. So one should not be a pessimist thinking that everything is predetermined. Nor should one overly be an optimist thinking that I alone can determine everything. But one should be a realist, saying that my effort is important, but my effort alone cannot determine everything. Ma aleshu adachana. Now the second misconception is people understand this to mean that do your actions without expectation. Do your actions without expectation. So here again, one cannot perform an action without expecting a result. Pujya Swamiji points out that again you don't have a choice in the matter. It is not that if you by somehow trying, you can do an action without expecting a result. Pujya Swami points out it is impossible to do an action without expecting a result. And we say that uh, prayojanam anuddishya mandopi na pravartate. Prayojanam anuddishya mandopi na pravartate. Meaning that even a dull-headed person cannot do an action without there being some prayojanam for that action. So even Bhagavan, for example, here is teaching Arjuna. When Bhagavan is teaching Arjuna, and when Arjuna asks the questions, and Arjuna asks several questions as we see in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan responds to the questions with an expectation that the answer will address Arjuna's question. So that is why Bhagavan repeatedly persists in answering Arjuna's questions in multiple ways through different angles. And similarly, when Arjuna asked the question, then he also expected that he would get some answer that would address his question. So it is impossible to do an action without some expectation. Even when I place the next foot, if I'm walking and I'm placing my next foot forward, I have some expectation that the floor below would handle my weight and not collapse underneath. If I didn't have that expectation, then I would be frozen there, unable to take even my next step. And Pujya Swamiji gives another example that exposes the hypocrisy of the person who translates this as saying, do actions without expectation. So you take a copy of the book of the Bhagavad Gita, read shloka number 47 of the second chapter, and he says, do action without expectation. Ma karmanyeva adhikaraste, ma phaleshu kadachana, do your action without expectation. So that's what he has printed in the book. So now if you go and ask this person who printed this book, how many copies of the book did you print? So he says, we printed about 2,000 copies. So why did you print 2,000 copies and not just one copy or 20,000 copies? So the answer would be that he expected that 2,000 copies is roughly the amount that would get sold within 6 months, let us say. So in printing those 2,000 copies also, he had a certain expectation. So people who say do actions without expectations don't really understand what they are saying. And there is a certain, perhaps some hypocrisy also that is involved there. And therefore, the correct understanding is that I have a choice with regards to my actions and not with regards to the results. So this does not mean don't expect a result, but it means that don't allow whatever the result is, whether the result is more than what I expected, equal to what I expected, or less than what I expected, don't allow that result to cause emotional turmoil. But I learn to accept it as prasada that is coming from Ishvara. And then we come to the last quarter of this shloka. Te sangaha, ma te sangaha astu akarmani. Ma te sangaha astu akarmani. So te akarmani, sangaha ma astu. Meaning that let your attachment or your inclination not be to inaction. So if sometimes if one said that I have read the Bhagavad Gita, if he reads just the first three, let's say the shloka had just these first three statements, that I don't have any control power or choice over the result, then one may say one may become afraid of the result, and afraid of one may become afraid of failure, and therefore one may resort to inaction. So there was this person who was interviewed, and the person said, I've never failed in my life. So then the interviewer got pretty excited and said, what is the secret of your never failing? And then the person said, I never did any action in my life. I never did anything in my life, and therefore I never failed. So there is an advantage to not acting, and that is that one will never fail if one doesn't act. But then there's also a big disadvantage to not acting, because if one doesn't act, then one can never grow. Because one's growth comes from karma yoga, and karma yoga involves actions. So action and withdrawal are both important, because what action can do, withdrawal cannot do. And similarly, what withdrawal can do, also action cannot do. And that is why in our scheme, in Sanatana Dharma, initially there's Brahmacharya Ashrama and Grihastha Ashrama, in which action is emphasized. And then there is Vanaprastha and Sannyasa, in which withdrawal is emphasized. Because initially actions are required for one's inner growth. But once one has achieved that inner growth, then withdrawal is emphasized again for what? For one's inner growth. So action can achieve inner growth, and withdrawal can also achieve inner growth. But it has to be done at the right time. Initially, only action can achieve that inner growth. When one has lots of ragas and dveshas, and one has to act in this world, then only actions can achieve that inner growth. Actions done with the right attitude as karma yoga. But then once one achieves that inner growth, then that same shastras say that now you can also withdraw from the actions. Why? Because now you have to focus on gaining Atma Jnana. So at that time, withdrawal becomes important for inner growth. But it has to be done at the right time. Withdrawal is only recommended for one who has gained the Chitta Shuddhi. And therefore, for someone who has not yet gained the Chitta Shuddhi, who has not yet gained the inner growth, the purification, preparedness of mind, then actions are the means to grow. Therefore, withdrawal is not an option, and therefore, may you not be attached to inaction. Then in the next verse, Bhagavan continues again on the topic of attitude of a karma yogi. Yogastha kuru karmani
योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि
sangam tyaktva dhananjaya
सङ्गम् त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय
siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva
सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्योः समो भूत्वा
samatvaim yoga uchyate.
समत्वं योग उच्यते.
So here, when we said sangam tyaktva, really, if you look at it from a proper pronunciation angle, because there is tyaktva, the anuswara becomes the nakara. So sangam tyaktva. And similarly, samatvam yoga uchyate. If we were to emphasize on the pronunciation, it would become samatvaim yoga uchyate. Samatvaim yoga uchyate. So here we do the padachhedaha Then there's another pronunciation note, yogastha kuru karmani. So yogastha kuru karmani can be said, or a preferred way is yogastha kuru karmani. So there is the jihva muliya that comes in, the ardha visarga. So here if we do the sandhi, then it becomes yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyoho samah bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So Bhagavan says, hey Dhananjaya, O Arjuna. Bhagavan says, Kuru. Kuru means Tvam Kuru. You do. And you do being what? So Yogasthaha. Yogasthaha, sun, karmani, Kuru. We can supply a sun there. Yogasthaha, sun, karmani, Kuru. Meaning being steadfast or remaining in karma yoga, you do. You do. And do what? Karmani. So yogasthaha san from karmani kuru, meaning remaining steadfast in karma yoga. May you do your duties. May you do your actions. And having done what? Bhagavan says, tyaktva. Tyaktva meaning having abandoned. And having abandoned what? Sangam. Having abandoned attachment. Sangam means attachment. Attachment to worldly result or attachment to the material gain. Having abandoned this attachment, may you do your duties. And again, doing what? Bhagavan says, Bhutva. Bhutva. Bhutva means being what? In the third quarter, Bhutva is there. Being what? Samaha Bhutva means being the same. Being the same. With regards to what? Siddhya Siddhyoho. Siddhya Siddhyoho means with regards to success and failure. So with regards to success and failure, Samaha Bhutva, Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva, with regards to success and failure, having the sameness of mind. And Bhagavan said, Uchyate, in the last quarter, Uchyate means it is said. And what is said? Samatvam Uchyate. Means this evenness of mind is said to be what? Yogaha. Samatvam Yogaha Uchyate. This evenness of mind is Karma Yoga. So Bhagavan says, that abandoning this attachment, may you, remaining steadfast in karma yoga, may you do your duties with samatvam. So when we say abandoning the attachment, then it is the ragas and dveshas alone that are the cause of attachment. Attachment to both actions as well as the result of actions. So, for example, let us take the action first before we come to the result of action. So, if we take the action, my ragas and dveshas are the ones that come in and say, I like to do this, or I don't like to do this. So, attachment to action can come in at the time when I'm acting, when I'm about to act. But then, my attachment to action can result in delusion, as we have seen the whole chain. Jnanam, ahankara, mamakara. And then there is raga, dvesha. And that is the one that causes mohaha. Shokaha and moha. So mohaha or delusion is caused again because of raga, dveshas that bring about attachment. And therefore, it can result in swadharma parityaga or paradharma anushtanam. It can result in abandonment of what my duty is and doing something else that is not my duty. So it can result in abandonment of dharma and taking of adharma. Why? Because of attachment to action. And therefore, Therefore, Bhagavan is saying Sangam Tyaktva, meaning step back from Sangam, means step back from attachment, means step back from the Raga Dveshas that are the cause of this attachment. And then Yogasthaha Karmani Kuru means that with proper engage in the proper actions, with proper attitude towards the action. And therefore, the world is, as we have said, the world is manifest Ishvara. Ishvara alone is manifest in this world. And Ishvara alone is manifest as all the laws that are operating in this world. And what maintains harmony in this world is dharma, as we have seen. Therefore, Ishvara alone is also manifest as dharma. There is a certain understanding with common sense. I understand that I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be lied to. I don't want to be cheated. I don't want to be stolen from. I understand this without anybody teaching me. And therefore, I also understand that everybody expects the same when I act in this world. Everybody expects the same thing. He also doesn't want to be hurt. She also doesn't want to be cheated. He doesn't want to be lied to. She doesn't want to be stolen from. And therefore, there is this common sense norms. There are these common sense norms with regards to how I should act. And this is what we call dharma when it comes to my actions. And this dharma is also a manifestation of Ishvara. Ishvara alone is there in the form of this dharma also, in the form of this matrix of values that governs my actions. That is also a manifestation of Ishvara. And therefore, when my actions when I do the right thing, when I engage in dharma, then I am in harmony with Ishvara. The Ishvara is manifest as dharma. When my actions are in keeping with dharma, I am in harmony with Ishvara. And therefore, my actions themselves become a form of worship to Ishvara who is manifest as dharma. Like I worship Ishvara who is manifest in various forms in this world. I take them to be forms of Ishvara and worship those forms. So similarly, dharma is also a form of Ishvara. And how do I worship Ishvara who is in the form of dharma? By my actions. My actions themselves become an archana, offering to Ishvara. And therefore, elsewhere, Bhagavan says, Swakarmana tvam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavaha. So with your actions, when your actions become offerings, Swakarmana tvam abhyarchya, when your actions become offerings to Ishvara. How do they become offerings to Ishvara? By being in keeping with dharma. They become an offering to Ishvara. And therefore, like the designer who has put a particular designer of a machine who has put a particular gear somewhere, put a particular bolt somewhere. If the gear does its job as the gear, then its action become an offering to the designer who created that machine. If there is a director in an orchestra who has told a particular person to play a note at a particular time, when that musician plays that note, then his music becomes as though an offering to the director who has created that orchestra and that music. They are in harmony with the design. And similarly, when I am in a particular place at a particular time, I have been placed by Ishvara in a particular responsibility. Then when my offerings when my actions are in keeping with dharma, they become an offering to Ishvara who is manifest as dharma. And therefore, yogasthaha karmani kuru, that in doing the right actions, with the right attitude, your actions become an offering to Ishvara. So I step back from my ragas and dveshas and do my swadharma. Similarly, at the time of acceptance of the results also, my ragas and dveshas can come in and say, I like this result or I don't like this result. That this should happen to me or this should not happen to me. So again, they cause attachment on the worldly or material result. So again, Sangam Tyaktva, at the time of acceptance of the result, Sangam Tyaktva means I step back from my own ragas and dveshas. I don't let my ragas and dveshas sway my mind. I don't let them determine my response to the outcomes. And therefore, Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva means that I have proper attitude towards the outcome of my actions. And I see all the results as coming from, when I see all the results as coming from Ishvara. Ishvara is manifest in the form of all the laws. All the results are coming from Ishvara. Then automatically the Prasada Buddhi will come in. And then as a result of Prasada, the Samatvam comes in. And I accept the results with a sameness of mind. And samatvam yoga uchyate. Therefore, Bhagavan gives the definition of karma yoga here, saying that karma yoga, the first definition of karma yoga. We'll come to the second definition that will come in the 50th verse. So here Bhagavan gives one definition of karma yoga, saying that the samatvam is karma yoga. The equanimity of mind, the sameness of mind with regards to the results of actions, having stepped back from my own ragas and dveshas, that is samatvam. We'll continue in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.